Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. So, good evening, everyone. We're, of course, studying Swami Chetanananda's book, Sri Sarada Devi, Her Divine Play. And we're on a journey from Calcutta to Jairambati. It was still called Calcutta in those days. And they made a stop in Kualpura, where there was a small monastery. And so the subhead for starting this evening is With Holy Mother in Kualpura. It was decided that the party would rest in Kualpura for a couple of days before continuing to Jairambati. However, Radu slept well for 2 nights, and she wanted to stay in that quiet village. The mother consulted with Kalikumar and others, and they suggested it would be good for Radu to stay in Kualpura rather than continue to Jairambati. If we remember, Radu was suffering from neurasthenia and just extreme anxiety, and was unable to deal with any noise or any stimulation, really, but particularly noise. So Radu remained in Kualpura for 6 months, 29 January to 22 July, 1919. Kualpura Ashrama stands on the main road from Kotapur to Desra on the way to Jairambati. It has a shrine, a kitchen, a dining room, rooms for the monks and devotees, and a well. On 14 November 1911, the mother had installed photos of the master and herself on the altar of the ashrama shrine. Holy Mother and Radu stayed at Jagadamba Ashrama, which was at the farther end of the village, about 2 furlongs east of the monastery. It had been built in 1915. This compound was in a solitary place, surrounded by high walls. The mother's cottage was spacious and had a cement floor. Near it was the kitchen. A big cottage at the southeast corner could accommodate 7 or 8 women devotees. Another cottage at the southwest corner served as a visitor's room for the men devotees who visited the mother from time to time. Monks and men devotees ate at Kualpura Ashrama, while the women ate at Jagadamba Ashrama. Nearly 40 people lived in the 2 ashramas, and Saradananda bore most of the expenses. Now this, if you remember, Saradananda was General Secretary of the Order at this point. He didn't live at Belramat, he lived at Udbodhan, the publication office in Calcutta, but he served as General Secretary. So it was when it says Saradananda bore most of the expenses, he means that Belramat through Saradananda was, but Saradananda was raising money, and so who knows just exactly how the bookkeeping was done. During this period, many devotees came to Koalpura and received initiation from Holy Mother. After spending a few days in Koalpura, the mother said to Brahmachari Bharata, "Something has happened lately. Whatever thought arises in my mind comes true, be it good or bad. Radhu likes this wild jungle because it is quiet. You are gone the whole day doing all sorts of errands. You come here before dusk to eat, and you stay in the visitor's room at night. I am a little scared because Radhu and Maku have jewelry here. I have asked Brahmachari Rajan also to come here at 10 or 11 at night after finishing his work at the ashram. After supper, the mother used to talk to Brahmachari Bharata about the master and about her problems. They would sit under a tree in the courtyard and speak in low voices, so that Radhu could not hear. One evening, the mother said, "Look, Bharata, this jungle is so dense that I wonder if one day a bear may appear here." "Mother, we have never seen a bear in this area." "Well, my son, the jungle is so dark that it frightens me." Now, you can imagine Sri Sarada Devi, the mother of the universe, in human form, could be concerned about such things. And it's worth our noting this, because it makes her be able to be so compassionate with us for our worries and our concerns. "Well, my son, this jungle is so dark that it frightens me." A couple of days later, news came that the mother-in-law of Ambika, the village watchman, was mauled in the Desra field by a big bear. Wow. The villagers shot and killed the bear. Holy Mother engaged a Brahmin Pandit to read the Chandi and perform the rituals suggested by the astrologer to ward off Maku's evil portent. Now Holy Mother hoped for Radhu's safe delivery. Radhu's heart palpitated with even the slightest noise, so she remained lying down, clutching some blankets to her chest. Swami Chetanananda sent a doctor and a midwife to Koalpura for Radhu. Late one evening, while the mother, Mandakini, and Brahmachari Bharata were talking under the courtyard tree, Mandakini said to Bharata, "Brother, the mother and I were seated under the shade of this tree at noon. The mother said, for some days 2 crows would come at noon and caw, and this would disturb Radhu, but I haven't seen them the last few days. Where have they gone?" Immediately these 2 crows came and began to caw from the tree. The mother smiled and corroborated the story. You remember, Mother had said earlier she was concerned because whatever she said would come true, good or bad. It was the middle of June 1919. It had been raining for a few days. One night at 10 o'clock, the mother, Mandakini, and Brahmachari Bharata were seated under the tree. Suddenly the mother said, That madman from Chihar has not shown up for some days. He is totally mad, but he sings well. I am afraid lest he should come and create a row here. Mandakini said, Mother, why did you mention his name? He may appear here right now. Bharata said that it would be impossible for him to come there at night, crossing the overflowing river. Just then the madman appeared with a palm leaf hat on his head and some spinach under his arm. He said to the mother, I have brought this spinach for you. The mother told him in a low voice, Please go now, don't make any noise. The man replied, How can I go now? The river is overflowing. Bharata asked, Then how did you come? I swam, he replied. The mother said in a sweet tone, My child, please don't make any noise. The man left then without saying a word. The mother had been deeply concerned about Radu for months, and she followed any suggested remedy with all sincerity and full faith. Regarding difficult and complicated matters, she depended on the master's will and remained calm. In March 1919, Nalini suggested, and when Radu's mother became mad, you made her wear the bangle from the wild Kali of Tiro. I'm going to read that again because I read it so poorly. In March 1919, Nalini suggested, and when Radu's mother became mad, you made her wear the bangle from the wild Kali of Tyrol, and that improved her condition. I think Radu will recover if she wears the wild Kali's bangle. Accordingly, the next day, the mother sent Brahmachari Bharata to Tyrol, which is 20 miles from Kualpur. Bharata walked to Arambagh, where he spent the night at a devotee's house. Next morning, he went to Tyrol. He offered 5 rupees for the Kali worship, 2 rupees to the priest, and 7 rupees for an iron bangle. He returned to Kualpur in the evening and kept the bangle hanging on a tree branch so it would not touch the ground. The next morning, Radu took her bath and put it on. She fasted for the rest of the day. Holy Mother prayed to Mother Kali and promised to offer a special worship after Radu's recovery. There was no change in Radu, but Surabala became even more unstable and angry because Holy Mother was following Nalini's suggestions. Surabala said to the mother, Why did you bring Radu here? She would have been better off in Calcutta, where everything was available. Here the weather is hot. If you can arrange to put an ice pack on Radu's head, she will get well. To pacify Surabala, the mother sent Bharata to get ice from Bankura. The next day, Bharata rode his bicycle to Vishnupur and then took a train to Bankura. He bought 20 pounds of ice and packed it in sawdust so that it would not melt. He returned to Vishnupur by train and to Kualpura by bicycle. The mother and Surabala began to put ice on Radu's head. Meanwhile, Kali Kumar came from Jairambati and said to the mother, Sister, you're putting ice on the head of a pregnant woman on the advice of a mad woman? I hope nothing bad happens to her because of the ice. The mother then stopped putting the ice on Radu's head. Now Kali Kumar suggested, Sister, you don't understand. This is not a disease. If it were, the Calcutta doctors would have cured it. I think she is possessed by a demigod or a ghost. Why don't you bring the famous tantric sadhu from Shush? Somebody pronounce that, please. Shushnagiri and get his opinion. Holy Mother agreed. The next day, she sent Brahmachari Bharata to Jairambati, and Kali Kumar accompanied him to Shushnagiri. I guess that's how it's pronounced. Kali Kumar told the tantric sadhu everything and offered a special worship to his deity. The tantric sadhu threw some mustard seeds on the altar and said that he had received the command to go to Kualpura the next day. When the tantric sadhu arrived, the mother bowed down to him, described Radhu's condition, and fervently begged for his help. He considered the case to be a ghostly affair, and he prescribed a remedy: sesame oil on 2.5 pounds of sesame oil from 2.5 pounds of black sesame seeds, fish oil from a carp weighing 40 pounds, and various kinds of herbs and plants boiled in an iron cauldron over a fire of dry ox dung fuel. The substance produced was to be rubbed on the patient's body, who must also wear an iron amulet. The tantric sadhu took 5 rupees from the mother and left. Holy Mother was unable to attempt this remedy, however, because these ingredients were impossible to obtain. One day, Holy Mother engaged a Chanda medium who also prescribed various kinds of medicines. They were applied to Radhu with no effect. Frustrated, Mother said, "I am praying to all the gods and goddesses, but no one is answering my prayers. It will happen according to providence. The Master is the only protector." Now, in modern terms, we have a different understanding of these things. And we know that Radhu was suffering from severe neurological conditions. Just exactly what they were, of course. I suppose a skilled psychiatrist could look at the symptoms and make an estimation of what the diagnosis is. But I think it's interesting that after the passing away of the Master and then of the Mother, modern medicine and modern psychiatric medicine took a strong turn for the better. And I don't think this is coincidental. This is an opinion from here. This isn't something I've heard from others. But it seems to me there's just such an improvement. If you look at the way medicine was in 1886 when the Master passed, and then you come forward 100 years, just 100 years to 1986, the difference is astounding, what was learned. Now, we know that Mother, we know that what the Master said was that Mother, Holy Mother, was an embodiment, an incarnation of Saraswati, the goddess of learning, the goddess of knowledge. So her appearance and her experience with these things, I'm sure, provided great impetus. And this is one of the reasons, I'm sure, why Swami Vivekananda was a great encourager of science, of all kinds. He knew that wonderful things would happen for human beings if science was given encouragement. And just a story. There was a science institute in Pasadena. The name is escaping me right now. Throop, Throop, Throop Scientific Institute. Its offices were right across the street from the Green Hotel, where Swami Vivekananda often spoke and took meals with the devotees. He never stayed there, but the Green Hotel was a very prominent place in Pasadena at the time that Swamiji was there in 1899 and 1900. So, of course, Swamiji went across the street and came to know the people of the Throop Scientific Institute. By the way, the Throop family is still active and prosperous in Pasadena. I don't know what their trade was at the time. It probably was the same. But right now they own building materials, hardware and building materials companies, selling to developers and contractors. In any event, the Throop Scientific Institute was very much of interest to Swamiji, and he encouraged them very strongly. To cut to the chase, we all know about the California Institute of Technology. That is a direct result of Swamiji's discussions with the Throops. They endowed it. They started it. It's in Pasadena. It's where such luminaries as Dr. Richard Feynman taught and did their research and so on. So when I say that Swamiji encouraged science and Mother being an incarnation of Saraswati must have something to do with this. Psychiatric medicine, this whole business, all of the superstition and ghostly and this and that and the other thing that surrounded it at the time. And Mother was still alive in the early 1900s. Of course, it isn't that there isn't still some credence to these things, possession and so on, but psychiatric medicine is very, very different. And I think that there's a correlation, a connection between what we read here and Mother's appearance among us. So Mother was trying all of these remedies for Radhu's illness, her condition. Nothing was working. Nalini became jealous that her aunt was spending so much money on Radhu, and she was always quarreling with Surabala. This family squabble was ruining the mother's mental peace. You can imagine, people being jealous about money in the presence of Mother. Finally, Nalini took her sister Maku, who was also pregnant, and left for Jairambati by palanquin. In the evening, the mother lamented, Nalini did not bring Neda to me for my blessing before she left. Nalini's mind is full of jealousy and getting more impure. Nalini's mind is full of jealousy and getting more impure day by day. She sent Brahmachari Bharata to Jairambati every day for news of them. In April, news reached Holy Mother that Mandakini's mother was seriously ill in Nabasan, and there was no one to look after her. Holy Mother brought her to Koalpura and engaged a doctor for treatment, but the old lady passed away within a couple of days. Meanwhile, Neda, Maku's son, had become sick with fever and a sore throat. The mother asked Brahmachari Bharata and Dr. Vaikunta, later Swami Maheshwarananda, to go to Jairambati the next day. Vaikunta diagnosed Neda's illness as diphtheria, a serious disease. They returned to Koalpura and reported to the mother that the boy needed an injection that was available only in Calcutta. The mother sent Bharata to the nearest telegraph office in Amarbagh. Is that right? Arambagh. In Arambagh, a distance of 14 miles, to send a cable to Saradananda. The Swami immediately bought the injection and sent it through Bhupeshwar Sen, who reached Jairambati at 9 o'clock in the morning. When he arrived, however, it was too late, and the injection did no good. Neda died at 5 o'clock on 20 April 1919. That night, the mother cried and lamented for Neda. The next morning, the mother made a remark about Neda. The boy was a fallen yogi in his previous birth, or a great soul. A little karma was left that he had to finish in this life. This was his last birth. Seldom does one see such good tendencies in such a little boy. He would collect some plumerias every day and worship me by putting them on my feet. The mother talked about Neda for a few days and sometimes shed tears for him. One day, Dr. Prabhakar Mukhopadhyay said to her, "Mother, this world is full of suffering. There is no escape since I am already in it." So the doctor was talking about himself. "Mother, this world is full of suffering. There is no escape since I am already in it. Could you tell me how I can have peace? I am disgusted with this worldly life." Now, for all of us who have similar feelings, time to listen up. The mother consoled him. "You are right, my son. There is no peace in worldly life. The Master exists, and he will surely protect you. It is extremely troublesome to live in this world with relatives. Look, I made a big mistake arranging Radhu's marriage, and now I am suffering." So I'm going to repeat what she said. What he said. "Could you tell me how I can have peace? I am disgusted with this worldly life." The mother consoled him. "You are right, my son. There is no peace in worldly life. The Master exists, and he will surely protect you. It is extremely troublesome to live in this world with relatives. Look, I made a big mistake arranging Radhu's marriage, and now I am suffering." The mother and Sri Ramakrishna both say you must not renounce your relatives physically, but practice mental renunciation when there is difficulty. And if you get in the habit of practicing mental renunciation, you find that things are not so difficult. When we change, the world, the universe itself, according to Swami Vivekananda, the universe itself changes. The macrocosm mirrors the microcosm. And so when we change, when we renounce our attachments that cause this quarrelsome and difficult attitude, when we renounce our attachments and our aversions, we maintain our love, we maintain our compassion, we maintain our relationship, but we renounce our attachments and aversions. Then things become more simple. And this instruction is part of the protection that the mother is talking about. That's such an important point that I'd like to ask if there are any comments or questions about this business that the mother just talked about with the doctor.
Yeah, but Swami, Brother Shankara, I want to ask you one question.
Yes, Sham.
Why did Holy Mother, who was universal mother, call those ghost doctors to cure Radhu?
It was the last resort. She had tried everything. The doctors from Calcutta had been helpless. She had tried all of what was then modern medicine. And so then she began to resort to the traditional, the tantric sadhu, the astrologer, so on. And you'll notice they prescribed these, what seemed to us very strange remedies. There may have been some efficacy in them. We don't know. But in the efficacy would have been in somehow in some measure balancing Radhu's nervous system. We just don't know. But Mother tried everything. And then she resorted to the traditional. And in that also was not effective. Now, the kind of things that afflicted Radhu, there are very effective medicines to treat the kind of symptoms that Radhu manifested. As I said, I don't think this is any coincidence. There is no such thing as coincidence. Mother came, she saw, she experienced, and being the goddess of learning and thereby of science, great advances in all realms of science have been made. As I said, if you just compare her 1886 to 1986, it's almost beyond belief. It beggars belief how much things changed and how much of that was beneficial to human beings in the realm of science, and especially one can say, in the realm of medicine and in psychiatric medicine. And those advances continue to be made.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Anything?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
When you said mental renunciation and physical renunciation, I think that not only with relatives, even our immediate blood relatives, that mental renunciation helps a lot to
Oh,
keep,
yes.
to keep healthy relationship. We can love them, we can be compassionate, we can help them if we can, but the mental renunciation is the key to have a healthy relationship. I found
Yes. And what are we renouncing?
yes,
We're renouncing attachment and aversion.
exactly. Not to be entangled with every problem of theirs as ours.
Not only that, but not to do things like Nalini becoming jealous about the money.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I'm so glad mother realized that she married Radhu. Marrying Radhu was a mistake. I was, from the beginning, I was thinking, what, mother is such a manifestation of God, goddess. How is she getting her married? She's already mentally sick. You know, in the beginning when you were reading, I
But
was, well,
but she
to
did
happen.
not know, and
Traditions.
she was following tradition. Yes.
Traditions, exactly. In India, even till today, people believe, they know that there is something wrong with their daughter or son, they would still get them married thinking that things would all get better. They won't get better. They would actually become more problems to the other household whom they send it to. So,
Well, it just depends on how much they take resort to
it,
modern medicine.
yes,
There's a strong prejudice among some communities
there is
against modern medicine, especially psychiatric medicine,
tax.
and it's a damn shame
It is.
because
It's still a tax.
it
Today, it's still a tax.
leads to people not taking advantage of
Yes,
things that could be very helpful.
that is true. Very true. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Thank you, dear. Anything else from anyone?
Yes.
Yes.
The mental renunciation and the being present with love without getting attached, being attached, is to me so key to pretty much any and every spiritual path,
Yes.
ultimately. And it made me talking about, I'm talking about with relatives and, people close, and, it reminded me about what we talked about last night in the class, in the St. Francis poem, Our Need for Thee, about not wedding another's madness,
Mm-hmm.
making them in debt to us for the deep gash their helpless raging lance will cause. That's that attachment.
Exactly.
That's that, yeah.
Beautifully said, Cindy. That's exactly right, and well remembered from what we talked about last night. Um, that wed to, that's attachment. That's what he was speaking of exactly. We do not, it's a fine line to walk. Swami Prabhavananda said something very, it can be startling when you first hear it. And it is this: people have a right to their pain and suffering. Do not try to remove it. Sustain and comfort. The trying to remove it, first of all, we don't know enough. And secondly, it's a form of attachment or aversion to the way they're behaving. Attachment and aversion are just two sides of the same coin. So the Swami's instruction was sustain and comfort. In other words, act compassionately, be whatever you can do to help sustain them if they're faltering. Sustain them and comfort them. Show them your love, your compassion, but don't get attached. Now, of course, Mother, in her attachment to Radu, she said this was Yoga Maya, and there was no way of explaining it to anyone else. But you're so right, Cindy, that what St. Francis said last night, and you remembered it well, what he said. Anything else from anyone? Well, I'm glad we did some manana on this, because this is such a key point.
Brother Shankara, one quick question.
Yes, Sham.
Is that Kolhapur and Jagadamba Ashram are still there?
I believe so. The Koalpura and it's Koalpura and Jagadamba. I don't know about Jagadamba. But I think Koalpura is still there. I remember vaguely someone talking to me about going there, but I wouldn't swear to it, Sham. You can look it up easily enough. Go to the Bellarmont website and put in Koalpura in the search window.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure Jagadamba. I believe I've read it, and we may yet read in this book that it was closed up after a time. But Mother was never really comfortable there because of the jungle. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll read on. Yeah, we've got another quarter of an hour. In Koalpura, sometimes the mother would feed Radu, but Radu spat the food out at her. If you can believe this is how crazy Radu was. This woman who had shown, this mother who had shown her every loving consideration. This is how crazy she was. In Koalpura, sometimes the mother would feed Radu, but Radu spat the food out at her. One day the mother was irritated and said to Sarala, "Look, my child, know this body," pointing to her own, "to be a divine body. How much abuse can this body tolerate? Can any human being bear so much torture? Only a divine being can bear it. These relatives are tormenting me. This time, if the master somehow cures Radu, I will withdraw myself. Look, my child, as long as I am alive, they will not know my real nature. They will understand it later." So this is such an important statement by the mother. I'm going to read it over. "Look, my child, know this body," pointing to her own, "to be a divine body. How much abuse can this body tolerate? Can any human being bear so much torture? Only a divine being can bear it. These relatives are tormenting me. This time, if the master somehow cures Radu, I will withdraw myself. Look, my child, as long as I am alive, they will not know my real nature. They will understand it later." And of course, that's proven to be the case. Radhu's prolonged neurasthenia led doctors to believe that an operation might be necessary at the time of her delivery. Saradananda arranged for Dr. Vaikunta and Sarala, who had studied nursing, to be present during the delivery of Radhu's child. Someone suggested the need for a specialist at Radhu's delivery, but the mother said, "Dogs and jackals live in the jungle. Do they not give birth to young ones there?" In other words, it's a natural thing. On 9 May 1919, Radu gave birth to a son in a natural way, without much difficulty. It was a great relief to Holy Mother. The boy was named, oh my goodness, I knew this name before, but now
It's Bana Bihari.
Bana Bihari. Thank you, dear.
Uh-huh.
The boy was named Bani Bihari. On account of being born in the jungle of Koalpura, his pet name was Bantu. Is that right? Banu?
Banu.
His pet, on account of his being born in the jungle of Koalpura, his pet name was Banu. On 2 July 1919, Holy Mother moved with her household to Jairambati. Radhu was very weak. She could not stand, but crawled about. Sometimes she had to be forced into bed. Now her eccentricity reached its height. According to custom, when Bana Bihari was 6 months old, Holy Mother arranged Bana Bihari's rice feeding ceremony and fed many people. At dawn, Holy Mother sang to Banu just as Mother Kaushalya of the Ramayana did when rousing her son, Prince Rama, from sleep. It is morning, awake, my child, thou who art merciful to the gods, men and sages. Bathe now and offer the gods cattle, elephants, gold, and betel nuts. Brahmachari Bharata wrote in his diary about Holy Mother's ordeal with Radhu during this period. Radhu's baby was now 6 months old, but still Radhu could not stand up because of weakness. To make things worse, she became addicted to opium for her stomach trouble. Holy Mother, too, of late had not been well. She was having occasional attacks of fever. She tried to wean Radhu from her opium habit, but Radhu was adamant. One morning, Holy Mother was cutting vegetables. When Radhu came for opium, Holy Mother understood her intention and said to her, Radhi, you have had enough of this. Why don't you stand up? It is impossible for me to take care of you anymore. For your sake, I have given up my devotion and everything else. Can you tell me how I can possibly meet all your expenses? At these words, Radhu lost her temper, picked up a big eggplant from the vegetable basket, and threw it at Holy Mother's back with great force. It struck her hard, and she arched her back in pain. Her back became red and swollen. Looking at a photograph of the Master, Holy Mother prayed with folded hands, Lord, please forgive her misdemeanor. She is not sane. Then she took the dust of her own feet, put it on Radhu's head, and said, Radhi, the Master never hurt me, not even with a rude word, and you torture me so much. How can you understand where I really belong? Simply because I live with you all, you do not think anything of me. Radhu burst into tears. Holy Mother continued, Radhi, if I get angry with you, there will be no one in the three worlds to give you shelter. Addressing Sri Ramakrishna, she said, "O Master, please do not be offended with her." All I can say is let's hold all of this in our hearts and treasure the unending compassion of the mother. A few months earlier, Narayan Iyengar, a devotee from Bangalore, had spent some time with Holy Mother at Kualpura. He gave her 100 rupees per month for Radhu's expenses. As he was leaving Kualpura, he said, "Mother, whenever you need money, please let me know without the slightest hesitation." At Jairambati, her expenses increased a great deal. Swami Chetanananda had written to her that since he had to collect money from here and there, he found it difficult to send her monthly expenses on time. Holy Mother said to a disciple, "I think Sharat does not have much money to spare, or he would not have written that way. The other day, the devotee from Bangalore promised to send me money, but how can I write to him about it? Shall I disobey the Master's last injunction about not asking for money from others?" To Radhu, she said, "Look here, Radhu, I'm going to lose everything for your sake. The Master asked me not to stretch out my hand to anybody, even for a pice. He assured me that I shall never lack simple food and clothing. He admonished me, saying that if I begged even a pice from any person, I would sell my head to that person in return." So you can see this is Holy Mother in this real double bind. Sharat doesn't, Swami Charadananda, Sharat doesn't have enough money to send her on a regular basis. The expenses for maintaining this family are great, and yet, and the devotee has said, "Oh Mother, if you need any money, just ask." But she's saying, "I just can't." The mother knew that her life was coming to an end, so she began to work quickly to finish her mission. She had taken responsibility for Radhu after her birth, and now she decided to complete her duty toward her niece. Despite all of Radhu's shortcomings, the all-forgiving mother, let us hold in our hearts, the all-forgiving mother tried to protect her spiritual life by giving her initiation. Later, Radhu told Kamala Ghosh, wife of how's that, Haima, what's that word? Vibhuti? Vibhuti Ghosh of Bankura.
Vibhuti.
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 I never said anything about initiation to the mother. So Radhu told this Kamala Ghosh, wife of Vibhuti Ghosh of Bankura, I never said anything about initiation to the mother. One day during worship, the mother was seated on the asana, and suddenly she called me, "Radhi, come here." When I went, she said, "Sprinkle Ganges water on your body. Take an asana and sit near me." Then she gave me a mantra. She bowed down and said, addressing the Master, "I have done enough. Now you please look after her." Sister, I could not understand what the mother was talking about, but after that initiation, my health greatly improved. Afterwards, Radu said to Brahmachari, Akshay Chaitanya, Akshay Chaitanya, I knew the mother was my aunt. Did I know that she was not human, but a goddess? Saying this, Radu fell down unconscious. So it's just a few minutes to 9, and we're about to start another subhead here. Are there any comments or questions about what we've read? I mean, this is very dramatic, what we've read. Very dramatic. Mother being assaulted by her niece, physically assaulted. Her being in this extreme difficulty about money. Any comments or questions?
Brother Shankara, I think Holy Mother must be having a very tough time in dealing with relatives, Radhu, money problems, and such things. At the same time, maintaining uh, uh, religious composure and things like that, meditations. So it must be real hard.
Yes, she said to Radu, I've given up my devotions. That in other words, she wasn't able to do her regular worship, her regular devotions, which kept her in close spiritual contact with the Master. It must have been very difficult for her. Thank you for observing that, Sham. Anyone else? Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, do you think Radhu had realized at that point that mother is a goddess?
I think that's why she fell down unconscious.
Unconsciously. So she does.
I think she was just overwhelmed with spiritual feeling at that point.
Okay, thank you.
And Mother's prayer to the Master and the initiation, of course, is the point of Diksha is offering the person at the Master's feet. And if you remember, she said to the Master, I've done enough, now you look after her. And so then her health did improve. That must have meant her mental health as well as her physical health. Of course, there's no separation between the two. Mental health and physical health are just two parts of one thing happening.
Brother Shankara, this is
Yes,
Swami. I suppose that when we face obstacles, sometimes when things in our lives happen and our spiritual practices kind of take a back seat, we can probably take some, I guess, consolation or inspiration that if the mother of the universe had trouble doing that when she was facing the difficulty, so we don't need to feel guilty, and
Oh, please,
so we can
no.
take an example from
Yes, you're
that and
so
take.
right, Swayam. And never feel guilty. Never feel guilty. Never feel guilty. I'll repeat this story. I think you've heard it said before. One day, Swami Brahmananda, who was at that point president of the Ramakrishna order, was walking with a close disciple in the streets of Calcutta. And they came upon a man in the gutter who had been a close associate and disciple of Swami Brahmananda, his initiated disciple. And the man had difficulties and had a drinking problem. And he was literally in the gutter, drunk, passed out. And the devotee that was walking with Swami Brahmananda as they passed this man said something condescending about this. Oh, isn't it too bad what's happened to so-and-so? And Brahmananda, without turning a hair, in the most compassionate and sweet voice, said, oh no, don't think that way. He's just backsliding a little. So when we get in these difficulties and our spiritual practices suffer even to such an extent as that fellow in the gutter, let's recall the story that was told. So many important stories were told tonight of that little boy Neda. He was, mother said he was a fallen yogi or a great soul in his last lifetime. So he came forward into this lifetime. Whatever happens, we are best served by thinking of it as somehow this will move me forward. Somehow this is going to move me forward. Even if I'm backsliding a little, even if I'm in difficulties, never feel guilty. As Swami Vivekananda pointed out, and this is something that just should be engraved on all our hearts. Anything that makes you feel smaller or less is to be avoided. He said, contraction is death. Expansion is life. So never feel guilty. Never feel badly about yourself. Of course, those thoughts will come. Mentally renounce them. Say, this is not the truth. This is just old habits. Anything else, Swam? That was very good. It was so good of you to think that if the mother was afflicted in this way, yes, we will be afflicted that way as well. Anything else?
Thank you, Brother Shankara. That's it.
Anything from anyone? All right. Because of the night it is, I'm going to close with our peace prayer. Let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. May this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to everyone and all beings everywhere. So good night, dear ones.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. Go in Mother's loving and protective embrace. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. So good night, everyone.
Good night, Brother Shankara.
Good night.
Good night.
Tomorrow night, Jnana Yoga. Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga if you choose to join us. Good night.
Good night.